Hi, and welcome back to this Tuesday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Going to get back to the phones here in just a quick second. Couple of things I wanted to address on the values issue front. That's where we like to focus on this program. We are concerned about politics and economics and the whole range of issues, but we believe here that family is the cornerstone of any healthy society, and so we are concerned about strengthening families. We're concerned about policies, enacting policies that protect families. That's why I personally support this internet ban on pornography. I want to encourage our political leaders to do the same thing in America that David Cameron has done in the UK. Let's get these internet service providers to block pornography going into homes, at least to start with. I'd like to ban it altogether like Iceland is planning to do. But let's just block it from homes as a default position to protect our children. Children are getting chewed up by this. They're getting devastated by this. The First Amendment provides no protection for it. We've talked about this before. It's political speech, not pornography, that the founders were protecting. And so because of the impact on children and families, that's why I want to see us do that kind of protection. A couple of things. You might have seen this. A federal judge, and here's where, Antonin Scalia talked about the other shoe getting ready to drop on same-sex marriage. And I said this at the time. I wrote a column on this at the time, that the majority opinion that was provided by the Supreme Court placed an internet explosive device, an IED, under the roadbed of every state marriage amendment in the land. 30 states have amendments to their state constitutions that define marriage as a union of one man and one woman and prohibit, in most cases, the recognition of any other domestic legal union. And yet what the majority did by saying it's a completely emotional argument, it was irrational. It wasn't based on law. It wasn't based on logic. Wasn't based on history. Wasn't based on social research. It was an absolutely horrid opinion from a constitutional and legal standpoint. It was worse than John Roberts' opinion last year, was absolutely tortured in its logic. But at least John Roberts tried to make some kind of legal case for what for his bizarre ruling in that case. This has no rationality whatsoever. They just said the only reason anybody would be for a ban on sodomy-based marriage is because you hate gay people. Well, we don't hate gay people. We don't hate anybody. We just love children. We believe that sex is a powerful force, that society has an interest on how that sexual energy is channeled. We want to channel it into the marriage relationship between a husband and wife. Every other form of sexual expression is risky to human health. There are sexually transmitted diseases. There are unwanted pregnancies. That creates a whole range of crises all on its own. We want the optimal nurturing environment for children, et cetera, et cetera. There are just tons of reasons why we are for natural marriage. We want that to be the only legitimate form of sexual expression that we embrace as a culture for a lot of very, very good reasons. But the Supreme Court said, no, none of that counts to us. We know you. We see into your heart. We see your black, evil, dark, malicious, malevolent heart. We know that lurking down there is this demon of hatred. You just don't like gay people. That's why you're against same-sex marriage. And so the Supreme Court issued a ruling based on their subjective judgment about what's going on inside our hearts, where they can't see, they can't know what's going on in there. They have no way of seeing that. God is the only one that can see into the human heart. Jeremiah said, the heart of man is desperately wicked. Who can understand it? Next verse, and is beyond cure. The next verse, I, the Lord, understand the mind and search the heart. He's the only one that can see into our hearts. Anyway, so I said at the time, look, when they made a ruling that this federal marriage amendment, the DOMA, the law that defines marriage as the union of one man and one woman for federal purposes, when they said we got to set that aside because the only reason you'd be for this is because you hate gays. So they said President Clinton, when he signed it, he hated gay people. He was a big-time homophobic bigot. All 342 members of the House that supported it, they were homophobic bigots. All 84 senators that voted for it, they were homophobic bigots. Everybody in America that supported it, they were homophobic bigots. That was the basis on which they made it. Well, you can use that argument then against any state marriage amendment, and it's starting to happen. It happened in Michigan 2 days after the Supreme Court ruling. We had a judge there set aside a provision in state law that reserved spousal benefits for people that were married under the Ohio state Constitution. They're the only ones that are in Michigan. Michigan's got a Constitution amendment. Now, we've got a federal judge that has ordered the state of Ohio, and remember, Ohio enacted a state marriage amendment in 2004. That very likely is what gave George Bush the White House. The turnout as pro-family supporters went to the polls in 2004 to pass that marriage amendment in the state of Ohio. They also voted for George Bush while they were there. And that's probably the reason that he won the 2004 election. Well, now a federal judge, using the reasoning that the Supreme Court gave about this animus and this malice and all that garbage, total bilge, none of that has any basis. None of it's rooted in reality. It's just scurrilous. It is libelous. It is irresponsible. It is inexcusable for the Supreme Court of the land to presume that they can know what's going on in other people's hearts. The law is not about what goes on in people's hearts. You know, that's what Thomas Jefferson said. It does not extend to opinions. The law can only extend to actions. I'm getting amped up here, but this agitates me, and I don't think God is as agitated as I am over this kind of swill, if we can believe what's in Zechariah, because he's hot. He is hot at shepherds that mislead the people, that believe lies and issue and spew lies. Anyway, so this federal judge said to the state of Ohio, you've got a marriage amendment that does not allow you to recognize same-sex marriages. You can't do that. That's just animus. That's just malice. And what had happened is there was a couple that went off to Maryland. They lived in Ohio. They live in Ohio. They got on a plane. They went to Maryland. They got married in a plane on the tarmac. One of them apparently has got some serious health problems, maybe at the end of his life. So they get married in a plane on the tarmac in Maryland, and they fly right back to Ohio. And they say, you got to recognize our marriage. Ohio says no. And a federal judge says, you don't have any choice. You have to. So it's already beginning to happen. So you're going to see this Supreme Court thing cited in one case after another. You know, the Supreme Court said, look, we're leaving this up to the states. This is the states' business. We've got no right to tell states what to do. But in the nature of the ruling that they issued, they planted that IED right underneath the roadbed of every state marriage amendment. Speaking of IEDs, 3 more American soldiers today died in Afghanistan, blown up by an IED. And you got to ask the question, for what? For what? We just sacrificed sacred lives, shed sacred blood in Afghanistan. For what? I mean, that agitates me no end. And it's time to just bring them home. It's time to leave that godforsaken country, give it back to Allah. We haven't done a thing with it. We haven't done anything there to help these people whatsoever. We haven't protected religious liberty. We haven't made it safe for Christians. We have done nothing. When we leave, it'll be like we were never there, and we cannot get these guys home, in my estimation, soon enough. All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Amanda in Arkansas. Amanda, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hi, I just wanted to talk to you about those demonic spirits, and I just wanted to let anybody out there that was dealing with one to let them know that they can come over it, because I was only 20 whenever I had my first experience with one, and I wasn't on medication. I'm not a crazy person. I go to school and I work, and it caught me off guard, and nobody in my family, my husband, nobody believed me, and the only person that I could turn to was God, and ever since then I have been closer to Him, and it is just unreal what God can do in your life.
Well, that's a fantastic testimony, Amanda. I appreciate you saying that. You know, by the way, you know, if you want more information about this, there's 2 books I'd highly recommend you get. One is a book by Mark Bubeck called The Adversary. That's the title of it, The Adversary, referring to Satan and his legion of demonic spirits that he sends out on assignments against us. It's it's not a long book, 160 pages, and it's published by Moody Press. You can't get any more conservative than Moody Press. But that book, I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that book by Mark Bubeck, The Adversary, it changed my worldview on spiritual warfare. I had one worldview when I began reading that book at about 8:30 on a Thursday night. When I got done with that book by about 10:30 on that Thursday night, I had a different worldview. That book was a life changer, a worldview changer for me, Mark Bubeck, The Adversary, and then a great book by Neil Anderson called The Bondage Breaker. He's also the one that wrote the book, The Seduction of Our Children, about how Satan targets our children. So those 2 books, The Adversary, Mark Bubeck, Neil Anderson, the Bondage Breaker books I highly recommend. Neil Anderson has a 7 Steps to Freedom section at the end of that book to pray your way to freedom and take authority over all the demonic forces that have gotten into your life. I've prayed through that with dozens of people, and a lot of people have been helped by that. Encourage you to do it. All right, Amanda, thank you very much for that. Let's go to Mark in St. Petersburg, Florida. Mark, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
I prayed through that with dozens of people.
Yeah, Mark, you're on. Let me have you turn your radio down so we don't get any interference there.
Right, I'm over here now in the kitchen. Listen,
okay, great.
I had one great thing to just talk to you about, and I do respect your view. And I love you, brother, but I'm a veteran, and I go to the VA.
Uh-huh.
And ever since I had my bypass surgery, they've been giving me pills. And I've never been a pill taker. I really don't like pills, but I had to take a certain amount, and they really love to push pills out there. So I started doing the right thing right, so I got off the cholesterol pills, and I've narrowed it down to I only take 3 pills. 2 of them are for my heart, and 1 of them is for pain. Now, this is the kicker, the pain pills, and I hate them because it took my wife. It got her addicted. She was murdered right around the corner from my own house.
Wow.
And it just about killed me. But 2 years ago, this is when this happened. So I've been really dealing with this and trying not to take them. So all of a sudden a year ago, out at the VA, they started with this new program where if you smoke marijuana, they take your pain pills away from you. They literally take them away from you, and it's just not right. Because there are a lot of my brothers that do smoke it, and it works for their pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. They can just go ahead and trash those pills, get off that addiction. On the other hand, it doesn't work for me. So I am in the Twix now where when I go for my blood work and stuff, if they spot any type of marijuana in me, they'll take my pain medication away.
Mm-hmm.
So in the process of doing it, I quit smoking the marijuana, and it's all of a sudden all these problems start coming back. And
the pain problems?
Not the pain problems. It was the mental problems that I had. I was out at the VA, and as of 4 years ago, my psychiatrist told me I'm cured.
Mark, I'm sorry. Can you hold on over the break? I've got a hard break coming up. Can you hold on for 2 minutes? Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.